She was born into wealth. He was born into dust. They met on the side of a desert road. She had a flat tire. He had no reason to stop. But what happened next? Built something no money could ever buy. Not fame, not headlines, but love. Real, undeserved, undeniable love. Stay with this story. Because the moment she said, "I'm not leaving without him," the world had no idea what they were about to witness. The Arizona sun scorched the cracked highway like a branding iron. By 3:40 p.m., even the vultures took shelter. Somewhere off Route 93, a matte black Range Rover sat tilted on the side of the road, its front tire shredded like paper. Behind the wheel sat Camila Dawson, sunglasses perched on her nose, sweat dripping down her brow despite the AC still sputtering. She slammed the steering wheel. Unbelievable. Former tech heiress. Silicon Valley's one-time rising star. And now? Sitting alone in designer heels, exiled from her own company after a very public boardroom coup. No signal. No shade. No one in sight. Until a low rumble broke the silence. A pickup truck, a dusty, navy blue Chevy, slowed beside her. From the driver's side emerged Micah West, 21, tall, lean, with sun-browned skin and grease stains up both forearms. A tattered work shirt hung from his shoulders. His boots crunched the gravel as he approached. "You look like you've been roasting out here," he said, eyes squinting behind worn sunglasses. Camila hesitated. "I've been here long enough to memorize every crack in the road." Micah chuckled. It wasn't mocking, it was calm. "Mind if I take a look?" She paused. Alone, vulnerable, but also stuck. And there was something about his voice, grounded. Honest. "Sure," she said. He dropped a weathered toolbox beside the tire and knelt down without another word. His hands worked fast, measured, sure, practiced. "You got a spare?" he asked. "In the back, I think." Camila stepped aside and watched. She'd had drivers her whole life. Assistants. A fiancé, ex-fiancé, who didn't know how to make coffee, let alone change a tire. Micah slid the old tire off like he was born to do it. "You do this often?" she asked. He shrugged. "Grew up fixing cars. My granddad ran the only auto shop in town. I helped him every summer till he passed." That quieted her. When he stood up minutes later, sweat marked the collar of his shirt and dirt dusted his jaw. "All done." Camila reached for her wallet. "Let me pay you for your time." He stepped back. "You don't need to do that. Just glad I turned down this road today." That stopped her. People didn't say things like that anymore. "What's your name?" "Micah West." "Camila," she said, her voice softer now. "Camila Dawson." He tipped an imaginary hat. "Safe driving, Miss Dawson." And just like that, he turned and walked back to his truck, leaving her more rattled than a flat tire ever could. That night, Camila sat alone on the porch of her vacation house in Sedona, wine glass untouched. The stars were out in full force, but her mind wasn't on the sky. It was on Micah, the boy with rough hands and calm eyes. And for the first time in weeks, she felt something stir that wasn't anger. It was curiosity. 2 days later, Camila found herself behind the wheel again, tracing the same road that had left her stranded. Her Range Rover moved steadily past the rock formations outside Kingman, Arizona, her eyes scanning the roadside, not for danger, but for him. Ridiculous, she told herself. People don't chase strangers over flat tires. But she wasn't chasing a stranger. She was chasing a moment that had felt real. Micah West had shifted something in her. Not just with his hands, with his refusal to take anything. His easy calm. His ability to look at her like she wasn't a failed CEO or a walking headline. He didn't want anything from her. And somehow, that made her want to give something back. Just past a rusty sign reading Yates Hollow, Pop 612, she saw a house with a sagging porch and peeling paint. And on the roof, shirt off, hammer in hand, was Micah. She parked half a block away, heart thumping louder than it should. The woman on the porch noticed first. Elderly, skin like paper and eyes like sunlight. She waved. "Micah, you've got company." Micah looked down from the roof, saw her, and blinked. His face didn't twist into suspicion or arrogance, just a small, surprised smile. He climbed down carefully, wiping sweat from his brow. "Didn't think I'd see you again, Miss Dawson." Camila winced. "Just Camila, please." He chuckled. "Camila it is. Everything okay with the tire?" "Perfect," she said. "But I didn't get to say thank you properly." "You already did," he said. She motioned to the roof. "You do this a lot?" He nodded. "Some folks need help. I've got time and hands." A breeze stirred the dry grass. Silence crept between them. Camila reached into her bag, pulled out a bottle of cold water, and handed it to him. Their fingers brushed. She didn't flinch. Neither did he. "You drink coffee?" she asked. He smiled, a full, unguarded one this time. "Depends who's asking." They ended up at a small diner that seemed stitched from the past. Rusted signage, faded awnings, booths covered in duct tape. The scent of fried chicken and black coffee clung to the walls. Micah ordered sweet tea. Camila stuck with black coffee. "Place has personality," she commented, glancing around. "It's honest," he said. "What you see is what you get." She sipped her coffee. "Wish I could say the same about most people I know." Micah raised an eyebrow. "Rough circle." Camila exhaled, long and slow. "I used to run a clean energy company. Built it with my father. 6 months ago, the board voted me out." His brow furrowed. "Ouch. They said I'd lost direction. That I was too emotional, too reactive. That I didn't understand the landscape anymore." "Maybe you saw the landscape for what it really was," he said. She looked up. "I don't talk much in boardrooms," he continued, "but I know power when I see it. And I know when people get scared of losing theirs." She leaned back, studying him. "Where'd you learn that?" He shrugged. "You watch enough people get pushed out of homes, lose their jobs, disappear behind bills and hospital debt, you start to see patterns." The conversation slowed, became something less like talk and more like trust. Camila leaned forward. "I'm working on something," she said. "An idea. A space where kids, veterans, anyone can learn to fix things. Not just furniture. Themselves. Their dignity. Their confidence. But I don't know how to build it." Micah sat quietly. "I mean, literally," she added. "I've got sketches. A vision. But no clue how to turn a hammer the right way." Micah gave a short laugh. "Hammer first. Vision second. That's what my granddad always said." She pulled out a notebook. Opened it to hand-drawn sketches, half dream, half scribble. "I want to do this," she said. "But I need someone who actually builds." He looked at the pages, then at her. "I'm not your charity case," he said. "I know that. And I don't do suits." "Good," she said. "I'm allergic to them lately." Their eyes held. He nodded, just once. "Let's see where it goes." The invitation arrived on a Thursday. Heavy cardstock. Black embossed lettering. Carrington Hall. A gala fundraiser for clean energy tech. Camila hadn't been to one of these events since the board had pushed her out. She had walked out of that world, heels clicking on cold marble, with nothing but silence behind her. But this time, she wouldn't be going alone. Micah said nothing when she asked. He simply nodded and disappeared into the back of the shed. The next morning, he showed up in a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled neatly, old boots still on his feet. When she opened the car door for him, he paused just slightly, then climbed in. The estate was a mansion carved into the hills above Sedona, glowing with curated light and sculpted prestige. Guests shimmered in silk and glass smiles. Inside, string quartets played to applause that was too polite to be real. Camila walked beside Micah, her hand brushing his. No one held doors for them. No one offered greetings. They stood in the corner of the ballroom for what felt like hours. It wasn't the room that made Micah uncomfortable. It was the way it flattened people, turned them into echoes of who they thought they had to be. Camila had once worn that echo like armor. Tonight, she looked like she was shedding it with every step. A man approached with wine in one hand and venom in the other. His voice oozed familiarity. "Camila, I thought you'd left our orbit." Then, with a glance at Micah, "And I see you brought inspiration." Micah's jaw didn't move, but his fingers curled into fists. "Is this your redemption arc?" The man whispered. "How poetic." Camila looked him in the eye. "Find someone else to belittle." She turned away, and Micah followed, out the side door, into the night air. The terrace was quiet, but not silent. Crickets buzzed. The wind was real again. Moonlight softened the tension on Micah's face. He leaned on the stone railing. His voice, low and even, cut through her thoughts. "You think I belonged in there?" Camila didn't answer. She just stood beside him, watching the valley breathe below. He spoke again, barely audible. "I didn't come for the party." She looked at him. "I know." His eyes found hers. "I came for you." Silence stretched between them like thread pulled taut. Then she took one step closer, close enough to hear the crack in his breathing. But the moment collapsed before it became something more. The gala behind them erupted in sudden applause. Somewhere inside, a new award was being handed out. A spotlight beam lit the terrace from above, catching them in the edge of its glow. Micah stepped back, just out of the light. "I don't want to be your performance," he said. Then he turned, walked toward the parking lot, and didn't look back. That night, Camila sat on the balcony of her rental house, wind tugging at the hem of her dress. Her phone buzzed with congratulatory texts from people she didn't care to answer. She stared at the empty chair across from her. The next day, she went looking for him, not to explain, but to listen. She found him in an alley behind Thompson's Hardware, welding something inside a half-finished steel frame. Sparks danced across his gloves. He didn't look up when she stepped into the light. Only when she said softly, "I'm sorry," did his hand still. "For what?" he asked without facing her. "For forgetting that not everything needs to be put on display." He turned slowly. Dust clung to his shirt, sit on his cheek. But his eyes were steady. "I didn't ask for a stage," he said. "I know," she whispered. "You put me in one anyway. I didn't mean to. I know that too." They stood there, surrounded by metal and tension and things not yet finished. She pulled something from her coat, a folded page from a notebook. New sketches, more defined, more real. She held it out. "I don't want to build this without you," she said. He didn't take it right away. Instead, he looked at her, really looked. And after a long pause, he reached for the paper. "Then let's stop pretending," he said. "Just that. And nothing more." The first week passed in rhythm. Hammer, measure, saw. Micah worked with focused intensity, teaching her how to hold weight, how to trust her hands, how to steady the boards even when they shook. Camila, at first hesitant, began to move with a quiet confidence. Her nails cracked. Her shoes grew scuffed. Her blouse sleeves rolled farther each day. They didn't speak much. Not about the project. Not about the gala. Not even about the notebook that now lived between them like a fragile secret they were both guarding. Instead, their connection unfolded in silences. In the way she handed him a level before he asked. In the way he angled a light toward her workspace before she squinted. In the way their elbows brushed as they leaned over the same plans, tracing possibility with pencil and fingertip. They spent long hours in the unfinished structure, half steel, half dream, surrounded by lumber and soft radio static, the world outside melting away. Sometimes he would glance up from the table saw and see her standing barefoot in sawdust, brushing hair from her forehead, smiling at something she hadn't told him. And sometimes she would look across the framing and catch him watching her, not like a stranger, but like someone trying to memorize every detail. They ate in silence too. Folded sandwiches on a paint-splattered bench. One thermos passed between them. No photos. No posts. Just food shared under open sky. At night, they walked the perimeter of the lot in slow loops. She walked barefoot now. He didn't ask why. She didn't explain. He just noticed how she slowed when the wind picked up, how she lingered near the ridge where the view opened up to endless desert. On the fourth night, the storm rolled in. They took shelter inside the frame, wind howling through empty window spaces, tarps flapping like sails. Rain started as a whisper on the tin roof, then grew loud enough to swallow breath. He lit an old camping lantern. Its golden light flickered between them. She sat on the plywood floor, knees to chest, arms wrapped tight. He sat across from her, elbows on his thighs, watching her quietly. Her hair curled in the damp. Her makeup had long since faded, and she had never looked more undone, or more beautiful. Lightning split the sky outside. For a moment, the whole world froze in light and shadow. And then something shifted. He reached for her hand, not out of habit or pity, but with a gentleness that seemed to say, "I see you. All of you." She let him. Their fingers interlaced slowly. Not possessively. Not urgently. Just wholly. Rain pounded harder. The wind screamed. But between them, the silence held. And in that silence was every word they didn't know how to say. That she no longer needed titles to feel seen. That he no longer needed distance to feel safe. That what they were building wasn't just walls and roof and beams. It was something they had no blueprint for. Something no storm could wash away. The morning the article dropped, it shattered everything. Micah found it first, printed out and tacked to the corkboard behind the register at the hardware store. A photo. Him and Camila, holding hands under the skeleton frame of the workshop. The headline above it read, "Disgraced heiress builds love nest with small-town laborer." The piece was cruel. Words twisted. Facts omitted. It painted her as desperate, him as opportunistic. The tone was mocking, dripping with judgment disguised as journalism. And worse, it had gone viral. By the time he walked outside, Camila was already parked at the edge of the lot. She had seen it too. Her eyes were rimmed red, not from shock, but from understanding. The silence between them this time was different. Heavy. Dangerous. He held up the paper. She looked away. It wasn't the article that broke him. It was the expression on her face. For the first time, she looked afraid. Later that afternoon, reporters showed up outside the build site. Camila tried to speak to them at first, measured, calm, but the questions weren't about architecture or community. They asked about his job history, his education, his criminal record. He didn't have one, but that didn't stop them. Micah walked away when one reporter said, "Is it true you met her on the side of the road, looking for work?" That night, the board of the local funding group withdrew their support. Too much distraction, they said. Too many headlines. Camila sat on the floor of the unfinished office, fingers tangled in her hair, blueprints scattered like broken promises. Micah stood in the doorway. He didn't walk in. She didn't look up, but he could feel her breathing shake. The next day, she didn't show up at the site, nor the day after. Micah kept building anyway. Alone. Quiet. Dust on his back. Nails in his teeth. Something aching in his chest. On the third day, he found an envelope taped to one of the beams. It was from her. No name on the front. Just the words, "If I disappear, don't stop building." He didn't open it. He didn't need to. She had made her choice. But still, that night, he climbed the ladder to the roof and stared at the stars. Not for signs, just for silence. And the next morning, she was back. No press. No makeup. No car. Just her, in jeans and an old sweatshirt, carrying a thermos and a notebook. She stood at the base of the frame while he hammered overhead. When he glanced down, she simply raised the notebook, opened it, turned the page. A new draft, a new vision, a new funding plan, smaller, local, grassroots. He didn't speak. He climbed down. She handed him the thermos. He drank. Then she knelt beside the scattered blueprints and began to sort them. Wordlessly, side by side again. Later that week, the doors of the new community center opened, not with cameras or confetti, but with a soft ribbon and a handmade sign. Locals came. Veterans. Teenagers. Mothers with children. No one asked about the article. Camila gave a quiet speech. Micah didn't stand beside her. He was inside, showing a 14-year-old how to use a sander. But as she ended her remarks, her eyes scanned the crowd until they found his outline, just beyond the window. And in that glance was everything the headlines missed. The next morning, another article was published. This one didn't trend, but it mattered more. They said it was a scandal, but they built a sanctuary. Spring came to Arizona like a quiet promise. The wind softened. The sun warmed instead of scorched. Wildflowers bloomed along the edges of the gravel lot where the Sun Hollow Community Workshop now stood complete, its wooden siding warm against the desert light, its open doors alive with voices. It had been 4 months since the storm of publicity. 4 months since Camila and Micah chose silence over spectacle. Work over words. Roots over reputation. The workshop wasn't polished. It wasn't sleek. But it was beautiful. Inside, you'd find Micah teaching teens how to carve joints from pine wood. You'd find Camila, sometimes barefoot, sometimes in paint-streaked jeans, writing grant proposals at a plywood desk, her hair in a loose bun, her laugh softer now. More real. The board that once walked away had come back with offers. So had old colleagues, curious to be associated with something honest. She turned most of them down. She didn't need their return to feel whole. She already was. But the real shift came one Saturday morning when an invitation arrived. Not to a gala or a fundraiser, but to the Phoenix Summit for Civic Renewal. Camila had been selected to deliver the keynote address. At first, she hesitated, not out of fear, but because she no longer needed the validation. Micah watched her read the letter in silence, his hand resting lightly on the workbench beside her. When she looked up, he nodded once. "You don't owe them anything," he said. "I know," she replied. "But you could show them what it looks like when love builds something real." So she accepted. When the day arrived, she didn't wear the tailored suits of the past. No heels. No script. Just a simple navy blouse, denim slacks, and a pair of brown flats Micah had bought her from the farmer's market. Comfortable. Grounded. The stage was polished. The crowd well-dressed. But Camila's voice, when it rang out, was clear and calm. "I'm not here to talk about innovation," she began, "or about what I lost. I'm here to talk about what I gained when I stopped protecting my name and started protecting my purpose." She told them about the workshop. About the boy who learned to fix chairs instead of breaking windows. About the veteran who cried after sanding a plank smooth because it reminded him of the floors he used to polish for his family. She told them about the man with calloused hands who walked away from the cameras so he could keep building. And then she paused, looked out at the sea of faces. I used to believe power came from titles, but I was wrong. Her hand rested over her heart. Power comes from choosing to stay. When it's hard. When it's thankless. When no one claps. A silence fell over the room. And in the crowd, Micah stood at the back, arms crossed, eyes steady. He didn't want applause. He just wanted her to be seen. And she was. That afternoon, they didn't celebrate with champagne. No red carpets. No headlines. They drove out past the city into the hills, where the desert opened wide. They parked beneath a flowering Palo Verde tree, climbed onto the tailgate of the old truck, and watched the sun drop behind the ridge. Camila leaned her head on his shoulder. Micah took her hand in his, thumb brushing over the lines in her palm. She brought his fingers to her lips, kissed them, then rested both hands in her lap, tangled with his. No one watched. No one needed to. In that stillness, in that dusk, lived everything they had fought for. A love without spotlight. A place where class didn't matter. Where color didn't divide. Where building something meant showing up again and again. Later that night, back at the workshop, a dozen kids sat cross-legged on the floor, working on projects. One drew blueprints. One braided extension cords. Another wiped off tools and carefully placed them in label bins. Micah walked the rows, quiet and watchful. Camila knelt beside a girl tracing woodcut lines with a pencil. Their laughter was easy now, no longer tempered by scrutiny. At the back of the room stood a wall of photos. No gold plaques. Just Polaroids and sharpened names. One photo, worn at the edges, showed a woman in a linen blouse standing beside a tall man in worn boots, hands dusted in sawdust, both smiling like they had nothing left to prove. Above it, handwritten in uneven black ink. Built by hands. Built by heart. The world outside would forget their names in time. But the space they built would never forget the people who filled it. And that was enough.